Welcome back to LillySquared,
a video podcast by women for women.
What show number is this? I think it's week 8?
I think you're right. It is 8. It's crazy that we're already 8 weeks through. That means semester's coming to the end, but I've had an amazing experience so far.
I've definitely learned so much, and I've been having so much fun doing a lot of outside work and doing this.
Yeah, I know a lot of us, me, you, and Soleil, we've been doing things outside of the show as well. Like, I got to work for ESPN. Soleil has been helping with KU football, and you just got to work the first KU basketball game.
Yeah.
So I want to know a little bit about that.
It was so much fun. So Cal and I walked through. I know KU Athletics does not give us a whole lot of credentials and room to, do our thing for men's basketball games, but we did what we could. So I got to see the whole tech room and the producing room where they do everything, even in the truck outside of the stadium where they do a lot of the stuff for ESPN Plus. So they film the game there, and then they send it directly to ESPN elsewhere. I don't even know, in a completely different state across the country. I don't know where they do it, but they broadcast it from there to show on TV, which I think is really cool.
Oh.
But it was such a fun experience, and this Wednesday we get to go shoot at the women's basketball game.
I'm so excited. First game of the season. Yep. We're ready to see KU women's basketball play. So from my understanding, you were in the press room after the game, right?
Correct. So after the game, they usually bring in the players, and they'll have them sit down, and it's like a whole room. They set it up, so you'll have the people who are being interviewed up here, and they'll have all the reporters on the outside, and they'll go through and hand the microphone through the crowd and have them ask the players questions and stuff. And so they'll bring them one by one in, and they usually bring in 3 or 4 of them, and then Bill Self always comes in last. And that was a super fun experience too.
That's awesome. And I know you probably just got a lot of insight on how these players act and how they answer questions and stuff like that.
They were all very, very, very well spoken. And I was surprised. I was like, Cal, this guy, he knows what he's talking about. It was very professional. They were very outspoken. They could sit up and speak and talk and not just give you those one answer.
No.
Yeah, no.
We'll do this better next time.
They would elaborate on the questions that they were asked, and they would go in depth about it. And as a reporter, I was like, that is exactly what I want.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was helpful because last week, our technical director, Maya, gave us the idea to look into if players should be required to do press conferences and how that plays into mental health, body image, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I thought that was a great idea. And personally, I feel that female and male athletes have to kind of act differently while talking to the media. And I know that both of us, we wanted to pinpoint these differences within how they act in front of the press. What I found was interesting. The highest paid female athlete, Naomi Osaka, withdrew from the French Open because of her mental health. After this announcement, reporters ripped on her, thought that she had diva behavior, and it just she shouldn't have withdrew, which I thought was interesting. And I know when she heard this, it hurt her more. You think as a sports community, the media would again stand behind her decision.
Ahsoka did not go into much detail about her mental state at the time, but during this conference, and she should not feel obligated to, but she did tell the media that she was dealing with depression since the U.S. Open in 2018. Ahsoka also felt an obligation to apologize for beating Serena Williams in the U.S. Open. She felt the pressure to apologize for beating Williams because it was not expected outcome, and as the media portrayed it to be weeks late. So coming into the press conference, she was more upset than happy for her first place win.
Exactly, and this issue with the media doesn't just involve Naomi Osaka. Female athletes Bouchard was asked to give a twirl after her win against Serena Williams, and she was questioned for her upset emotion. Serena was questioned for her emotions about how she was upset, and after a match, a reporter made a comment on how this should be a teachable moment for her daughter. She shouldn't have been angry or upset with
And
her
Maria
win.
Sharapova was told at the age of 17 that she was supposed to be a pinup model through England and was questioned if she felt good or happy about it. Serena Williams was questioned a whole decade later if she was intimidated by Sharapova's supermodel looks, while Williams played against her in a match 14 years ago.
And I think I read the reporter waited years to ask this question.
Yeah.
Why is that question still resonating within that reporter? And I didn't understand, and I have to say I'm sorry, but you never see like male athletes be like asked these personal questions about their life, like give a twirl, or if they were intimidated by another person's look or like muscular physique. Like that just doesn't happen. And it's just considered absurd that it doesn't. And could you imagine asking 7-time Super Bowl champion Tom Brady about who he was wearing after his press conference, like whether it was Calvin Klein, Ralph Lauren, etc. Like, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to focus on asking him his performance and what the team did well on and what the team needs to improve on.
Or it's like asking MLB World Series champions Atlanta Braves about their diet, their muscle on their body, or whether or not it makes them feel less attractive or not. They just won a World Series. Like, why is that your focus?
It shouldn't be. And at the end of the day, the reporters, like I said before, are not going to ask these questions because in their minds, they perceive the questions as weird and like it wouldn't make sense with the interview and make the players uncomfortable, like make the male athlete players uncomfortable. So why can't it be the same for female athletes as well?
And furthermore, it seems that the media pressures female athletes to smile, be polite, graceful, and modest in front of the media, and that they just have to accept and answer uncomfortable personal questions. Like, why does the press have to be so drawn to intimidate these stories and not female athletes and their success and their game, not that outside stuff?
I don't understand. I know you don't understand it, but I think the media needs to start realizing that female athletes do not just play their professional sport just to be asked about their personal life. Rather, they play to make history, to be successful, and to eventually be called the best player in their sport, for example, Simone Biles.
Exactly.
And if the media is going to ask female athletes personal questions, like I will say again, male athletes need to be asked those questions as well. Or completely cut all out of all interviews and just focus on how they played during their game.
Yeah, and going off of that idea, a study was done in 2016 by Cambridge University that studied what language/words were used to describe the male and female athletes. Words such as fast, strong, big, great were most common words used to describe male athletes, while married, unmarried, pregnant, and aged were used to describe female athletes. I mean, I have to say those results were shocking to me.
I would have to agree 100% because it just shows that like there's two different separate categories, and the big, the strong, athletic category that has the positive connotation on the end of those words, while unmarried, married, pregnant, age, like that's just negative to me. It has, like I said, like it has nothing to do with female performance within their sport.
And the overall theme is that male athletes get to act like athletes in front of the media and news conferences, while female athletes get asked childish questions or treated like a child by the media. Probably a big reason why many more female athletes decide to step away from answering questions from the media.
For me, I would probably step away too.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to be treated like a child or like asked questions like we said above, like give me a twirl or what are you wearing? Like I don't want that to be focused on.
Yeah.
So anyways, to continue this conversation, I got the opportunity today to go out on Jayhawk Boulevard and ask students their position on whether athletes should be required to do press conferences and interviews by the media. So, do you think that professional athletes should be required to do post-game and press conference interviews?
They should be required. They're being paid by the team, you know what I'm saying, to come out and represent the organization. So, I feel like it's a part of them being an athlete. It's a part of the sport.
All right, thank you for your time.
Anytime.
I think that it should depend on the team that they're on and whether or not the team requires it, the coach requires it, but I don't think that it should be required by everybody.
I also think it depends on the actual game. Like if it's the Super Bowl, then yeah. But if it's a random game and people are tired and people just had a loss, then I don't think it should be required.
All right, I do believe that athletes who enter this type of world should be expected to be interviewed, but I do not believe that they should be forced or fined if they refuse to interview.
Now back to the studio as me and Lily Hennick will now debrief over these short interviews.
Well, thank you for that, Lily. And I think we had a really good couple interviews and a diverse range of answers there.
I have to agree. And unfortunately, Slay can't be with us today, but I was happy that I had the opportunity to go on Jayhawk Boulevard and just to see what it takes.
And it honestly got me thinking after I was sitting there behind the camera recording this. I was like, okay.
It gives you more insight and thought because it's not all one-sided. There's many different opinions out there. Well, we are going to take a short break, and when we come back, I will be back to bring you guys the latest news in the NFL.
No one takes drugs expecting to become addicted. You should know that addiction can happen to anyone because it's a disease of the brain. That also means recovery is possible. Addiction doesn't have to be permanent, and the state of Kansas is ready to assist you in every step of the way. Visit findtreatment.gov or call the Kansas Substance Abuse Referral Line at 866-645-8216.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Lily Wachowski, bringing you the latest updates in NFL news. I need to mention right off the bat that it is Week 9 in the NFL. Yes, Week 9, everyone. We are finally at that halfway point, and I have to say, things are heating up. But before I get into the weekly recap, I just need to touch on the biggest news that was circulating around the league this past week. Yes, it has to do with Green Bay quarterback Aaron Rodgers. The quarterback tested positive for COVID-19 the week before the KC Green Bay matchup. The news came last week, Wednesday morning. However, the news on his vaccination status came shortly after. Aaron Rodgers is not vaccinated for COVID-19, as reports have shared, and that he also shared that he was allergic to a certain ingredient in Pfizer and Moderna. He also was scared of the side effects that would come with Johnson & Johnson. Rodgers continues to tell the media that he did not lie about his vaccination status, although he did share to the media a while back that he was immunized. He also did not think it was the media's business in the first place to know his status. He knew that the consequences and commotion that would come out after this news was to be out. Ian Rappaport shared that Rodgers was following protocols and guidelines for players that were unvaccinated, even on his days off. However, the Packers will now undergo an investigation by the NFL just to see how vigorous Green Bay has been implementing COVID-19 regulations. So, what is going to happen to quarterback Aaron Rodgers for Green Bay? Most likely nothing but a slap on the wrist. It is unlikely that the team will be fined, but Rodgers probably will. The fine will be around $29,300, give or take, which is nothing but a very small dent in his paycheck. If Rodgers' COVID-19 test continues to stay negative through the week, it's more than likely that he will be able to start against the Seattle Seahawks at home. Some fans and reporters around the league do speculate that Jordan Love may get the start since Rodgers won't have many reps before the game. However, my opinion is that Jordan Love's performance against the Chiefs last week will not give him the start. It's also Aaron Rodgers. He did not play a snap all preseason, and I don't think he needs that extra practice. So, what did we learn from Week 9? Well, no one has a secure playoff spot, number one, and upsets will and continue to happen throughout the next 9 weeks. The first shocking upset comes from the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos were coming into Week 6 with a 4-4 record up against the 6-1 Cowboys. And the Denver defense was without Von Miller for the first time. The Cowboys were on track to be 7-1, but the offense clearly was out of sync. Players like Trevon Diggs and Ezekiel Elliott had not so memorable games, as they did not look like the go-to guys for the defense and offense. I have to say, it was not just the Cowboys' struggles that allowed for Denver to win. The Broncos were mostly motivated by their defense. The defense had a few fourth-down stops that resulted in the Cowboys turning over the ball, and by the end, Denver had upset Dallas 30-16. Another upset came from the Titans, who had an impressive win against the Rams. The Titans were without dominant running back Derrick Henry, as he's out with a foot injury. But this did not faze the Titans, as they caused damage against the Rams. And getting to Rams QB Matt Stafford was key for the Titans defense to be successful. Let's just say that the pressure that the Titans defense brought did face the QB, as he was throwing passes into the ground, had 2 interceptions, and was sacked 5 times. Even though most people thought the Titans hit rock bottom when they lost to the Jets, this Sunday night definitely proved that they were back on the right track to gain that playoff spot. Since the NFL is at the halfway point, I want to make predictions on which teams are most likely to claim that number 1 spot. For the AFC, I'm going to have to go with the Tennessee Titans. Currently, they sit at a 7-2 record, which is the best in the AFC right now. They sit at a 98% chance to make the playoffs, with a 41% chance to claim the bye week. The one challenge that I believe that may be in the way for the Titans to claim the number 1 spot is learning how to run the ball without their dominant running back, Derrick Henry. Reports have said that he may be back before the regular season is over with, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't come back until the playoffs. On the NFC side, I have to pick the Arizona Cardinals. They are still one of the most put together, consistent teams in the NFC right now. They have the best record of 8-1, and they definitely could be on track to win the rest of their games. The Cardinals have over a 99% chance to make the playoffs, and right now a 41% chance to claim the NFC bye week. However, the only challenge they may face is the Packers. Green Bay is right on the Cardinals' heels for the #1 spot. The Cardinals will have to continue to win as the Packers are only 1 game behind. That is all I have for the latest NFL news in Week 9. Now over to Maya as she is going to give a little bit of insight on KU's women's basketball game coming up tomorrow night.
'Tis the season to be jolly. No, it's not Christmas, and I know Thanksgiving is around the corner, but the real holiday season has begun. Basketball season. While the Jayhawks are competing in the Champions Classic tonight against Michigan State, women's basketball will be tipping off tomorrow against Southern Illinois Edwardsville. And I'm here to give you the scouting report for KU as we begin the season. Now, here are a couple of players I think we should watch so far at the beginning of the season. Everyone knows I have to start off with a shout out to my Texas KU standout and senior this year, Anaya Thomas. Duncanville, Texas best, and making her way to leaving her mark on KU this year. Anaya is a strong combo guard, and my favorite aspect of her game would have to be her passing skill. As a guard, finding your post player in the lane on a no-look pass and reading the defense for a quick drive and kick out to the wing is top tier, so make sure you keep your eyes on Anaya Thomas. Next is Chandler Prater. She will be the energy boost to the team, and honestly, I'm going to call it right now, she's the queen of the court. Late night, Chandler was a highlight of the game, and she is a redshirt sophomore this year, so the goal is to show up and show out. Chandler will add a spark on the defensive side, while also her presence in the paint will be valuable as she has a nice jumper and will be able to dominate in the mid-range area. Now, of course, there are many players this year that I'm hyped to watch, but for the start, this is my top 2. For more highlights and some behind the scenes of the game tomorrow, you can follow @TheMayaPeterson on Instagram and Twitter, as I will make sure to keep you posted. Now, after this short break, Lily Hennick will have your weekly fantasy report.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to your Week 9 update, and let's get ready for Week 10. Well, guys, we're halfway through the 2021 regular NFL season, and it always seems to fly by. I mean, when the Sunday games came of Week 8 concluded, nobody could imagine the news that would come the following 72 hours. On Monday, we received the news that Derrick Henry would be out for possibly the rest of the season. And by Wednesday, we received the news that Aaron Rodgers was placed on the COVID-19 reserve list. Then, shortly followed the news that Aaron Rodgers had reportedly faked his vaccination status. Like, bro, come on, you can do better than that. Then, the days with Odell Beckham Jr. and the Browns began to feel numbered. Though I don't expect weeks like this with many unexpected news, but it does keep fantasy managers on their toes and reminds them that even fantasy roster management is an all-week exercise. Anyways, there are 4 teams on a bye week, and those teams include the Chicago Bears, Cincinnati Bengals, New York Giants, and the Houston Texans. Let's waste no more time and get right into your Week 10 waiver pickups. First pickup I have Jordan Howard, running back for the Philadelphia Eagles, rostered in 8.1% of fantasy leagues. When Miles Sanders went down with an ankle injury, I would have assumed that Kenneth Gainwell would take a larger role, but that wasn't the case here. As both Howard and Boston Scott rushed for 2 touchdowns in Week 8, it was Howard, the veteran from the practice squad, who looked the best in Week 9 for 71 rushing yards for 17 carries, and he found the end zone. Sanders is expected to be out for another week or so, and Howard would seemingly have the chance to lead the way in terms of carries once again. Next up, I have Brandon Ayook, wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers, rostered in 45.6% of fantasy leagues. Ayook's curiously slow start to the season didn't make much sense, but it was clear that he had lost trust of head coach Kyle Shanahan. He appears to have turned the corner in recent weeks and had 6 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown in Week 9. Ayook has a star-level traits and can be a game changer for the 49ers offense. Frustrated managers dropped him after that slow start to the season, but sure to resuscitate it right away. Next up, I have Tim Patrick, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. He had 85 yards on 4 catches and a beautiful long-distance touchdown to help Broncos to its rout over the Cowboys, which was very surprising for some. I felt long that underrated is one of the most overused terms in sports, but Patrick qualifies as one of the league's most underrated amongst wideouts. You should add him. Next up, I have Elijah Moore, wide receiver for the New York Jets, rostered in 15.3% of fantasy teams. The catches have piled up lately for Moore, as the rookie is looking like the best player who was amongst the best on the field during the Jets training camp. He has 13 catches over the past 2 games and found the end zone twice in Week 9, setting a career high with 7 catches and 84 yards in the progress. While the Jets offense has been up and down this season, throwing has been super popular lately. Although Zach Wilson should be back soon, Moore should see amongst his favored targets, as he's a good bench addition. The next few I won't go in depth, but I am still going to mention them as they are great additions for your team. Carlos Hyde, running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Logan Thomas, tight end for the Washington football team. Darnell Mooney, wide receiver for the Chicago Bears. Ty Johnson, running back for the New York Jets. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. That's all I have for your fantasy football update this week, but let's get right into fantasy basketball. So you all know I'm a huge Nuggets fan. Like, man, oh man, that game versus the Heat last night was nuts. Now, I understand Jokic probably shouldn't have shoved Markieff Morris like that, but Morris should not have initially cheap-shotted Jokic after whatever he was doing. Passing the ball, I don't know, he's crazy. But Markieff flopped and laid on the ground for an unnecessary amount of time. Like, bro, I understand he probably hit you hard. He's a big man. I get that. But I understand that you are a former KU player, but I have no respect for you as I am a bigger Nuggets fan. But watch out, Morris brothers. The Jokic brothers are on the prowl right now, as you can probably see them fighting on Twitter. I don't even know what they're doing. Let's get right into our waiver pickups for this week. Point guard, I have Ricky Rubio for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Bro went off in fantasy this week with 71 points, whom I have on my team. Assists can prove scarce on the wire, but Rubio provides enough dimes and steals to make up for the modest scoring rates. He was a difference maker as a shooting force against the Knicks on Sunday. Next up, I have Desmond Bain for the Memphis Grizzlies. He's cooled off from the floor after an interesting start to the season, but Bain is still playing plenty of minutes after lofting a helpful rate off of 3-pointers. He's due for some better shooting nights given his awesome career efficiency from beyond the arc. It could be wise to consider Bain as a specialist. Next up, I have small forward, and I am suggesting Will Barton for the Denver Nuggets. Find room on your roster for this playmaking wing. Barton is up to a career best of 4.3 dimes per game, while also taking the most shots and 3-pointers per game in his career. With Denver's need for a blend of scoring and distribution, Barton should continue to play a big role. Up next, I have power forward Robert Covington for the Trailblazers. Undeniably struggling as a shooter thus far, given the larger sample of success as a floor spacing and dynamic defender, he's likely to show some work on the floor. Last, I have a center, and I suggest Thaddeus Young for the San Antonio Spurs. On a young Spurs team focused on developing talent and likely angling for draft success as a goal this season, the minutes aren't always there for the steady veteran. That said, he's a busy defender with multiple turnovers forced in 2 games entering Sunday's matchup against the Thunder. Given the season's awesome assist rate with the Bulls and the potential to build some big lines when afforded minutes, Young is an older guy worth targeting. All right, everyone, that's all I have for you this week in all of fantasy, but stay tuned next week for more fantasy updates. And I want to thank you guys for joining us this week in this episode of LillySquared. And remember to join us next week at the same time. Bye, guys.